lab up there.
Yeah. You want wireless too?
No, I can use that.
Hurry up and wait.
Everyone wants to grab a seat. If you guys want to sit up front, we're going to get started in the next about 2 minutes, please.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
All right, if anyone would like to take a seat, we're going to get started now. We got a bunch of seats up here if you want to gather up towards the front for this event. We want to welcome everybody that's here for the 5th annual Lockport International Overdose Awareness Day Rally. I want to give yourselves all a round of applause for showing up today, please, guys. Give yourselves a round of applause. We're going to have Tim Bax come up and pray us in, please, Tim.
It's great to be here today, a day of celebration, believe it or not. And we want to just pray that God would just manifest His presence. So let's pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for each and every person that's represented here today. Lord, we ask that you manifest your love, your mercy, and your grace, that you manifest your peace and your comfort to everyone here, Lord. We remember those that have left us, and we remember those that are suffering from the loss of their loved ones. But Lord, we know that you are the great comforter, and you are the one who will work everything out for the good. So I pray a blessing upon each and every person here, those that are coming, those that may not even be here tonight, that you would bless them and touch them and heal them, Lord. For we need your healing power, and we need your strength, Lord. We need your motivation. We need your empowerment to do the things that we're able to do to help those in the car. I pray for those that are still out there, Lord, that you would protect them and keep them and bring them uh, back, Lord. So we pray a hedge of protection around them, a hedge of protection and safety. And we thank you that you have given us the opportunity uh, to tell our stories. You've given us an opportunity to turn such horrible circumstances into something that can be useful and meaningful and beneficial. Do that in every life, Lord. Touch every family member, touch every loved one here. So we thank you for this gathering, and we thank you that you love us with an everlasting love. And we ask all this in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Tim. Tim from In His Name Outreach. Give him a round of applause, everyone, please. A warrior himself. My name is Doug Bisher. I'm with the Addict to Addict Niagara program from Independent Living in Niagara County with Western New York Independent Living. I'm excited to be here today to be able to celebrate. As Tim said, this is a celebration. This is to break down the stigma and to share the resources within our community. This event has grown tremendously over the last 5 years. I want to give a big shout out to the peer group who worked tirelessly throughout the year to make this thing happen. And as we know, this last year has been one of the most trying years that we've had in a very long time, as addiction and mental health have taken off to a whole nother level. And the stigma that comes along with these things, we continue to break down as a community, as a collaborative, and we work together in our community for these things. We're not in competition. We believe in collaboration. And I want to welcome Mayor Michelle Roman up here for a proclamation. Give her a round of applause, everyone. Let me get the peer-led group up here. Come on, team. Come up here with us, Tom, Allison, Kelly, Desiree, Sarah, the whole squad. Sean. Bring that little beautiful girl of mine up here, too. Jahida, the rest of the team, you know who you are. Lindsay, I see you. Come on.
Desiree.
Nice try.
I know, shocking.
Mark, one of us.
Jahida.
Yes, we did.
Are we set?
We are.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Before I read the proclamation, I just want to say that this is a very personal thing for me, and I'm so glad this happens here in our community. I believe that every family has been impacted by somebody with an addiction. And if you have both emotional or physical scars from that, those are a symbol of your strength and how you have worked through those things. And we only do that together. And so I thank you all for participating in this. And I thank you guys for organizing it. Whereas Western New York Independent Living is hosting an annual International Opioid Overdose Awareness Day on August 31st, 2021 at Veterans Park. And whereas this day is about remembering the loved ones we have lost and acknowledging the grief of family and friends left behind. And whereas our community faces many negative influences, and without the correct tools, they will have a hard time making positive choices. And due to COVID-19, the cause is more important than ever and is leading to increased drug-related harms around the world. And whereas a local advocate group referred to as the peer group has helped making others aware of tools we can use to save lives. And whereas Opioid Overdose Awareness Day will feature addiction treatment providers, stories of recovering addicts, and a remembrance table and a candlelight vigil. And by illuminating local businesses and homes purple, it sends a powerful message of support for the families in the city of Lockport affected by overdose. And now therefore be it resolved that I, Michelle M. Roman, Mayor of the City of Lockport, urge all citizens to join me in recognizing and supporting our community by rallying together to fight against this substance abuse disorder. And the City of Lockport does hereby declare August 31st as International Opioid Overdose Awareness Day.
So this year, we have more delegated into our group, our peer group, who is absolutely amazing. Can't thank you enough for the way they've helped us grow. And I would like Sarah to come up and say a word in regards to. Come on up. Well, this is a big part of independent living, so come on. I'm going to stand right here by you. All we're going to do is say thank you.
Hey guys, I'm Sarah, and I'm the Director of Independent Living in Niagara County, and we are very grateful for everybody that has come out tonight. This is a huge part of the activities that mean a great deal to all of us. And as the peer group here, you can see a lot of work and collaboration has gone into this, a lot of tears. And today is a little bit of what we can give back to those that we've lost. So, thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Give them a big round of applause, guys, please. Thank you, guys. Once again, I just want to thank everyone for coming out and making this event what it is every year out here in Lockport and in Niagara County. And we're going to continue to push forward and break down the stigma, the barriers, and share the resources within our communities and the surrounding communities as well. I just want to go over some statistics over the last year as they're staggering. As the disease of addiction continues to progress, I need to say this first and foremost, so does recovery. And the floodgates to recovery have opened up as well. And there are resources, there is help, there is hope. And it's been easier than ever to get connected with people, not only within your community, but in surrounding communities across the country and across the globe. After all, I got a friend here that I met on Zoom that drove out from Michigan 5.5 hours to come to his first function here today. In 2019, there was 29 fatal overdoses. And this is always underreported. I just need to say this as well. 2020, there was 59 fatal and 459 non-fatal.
In Lockport?
And in 2021, as reported last week, 61 fatal in Niagara County and 319 non-fatal. And in Orleans County, there was 7 fatal. That's up 32% from last year. Fentanyl is across the board right now. We need to raise awareness. We need to talk about these things. It's not only in heroin anymore. It's in methamphetamines. It's in cocaine. It's in benzos. It's in pill presses. There's no safe use for drugs anymore, ladies and gentlemen. As we have a Narcan table back there in the middle and free training, if you don't have a Narcan kit, if you need a Narcan kit, if you think you might need an extra one or you have a loved one that might be able to use it, please check in with one of these agencies. There's multiple tables doing Narcan training as well. If not, please go to that table and someone will show up there and get you Narcan trained while you're here today, please. There's no stigma. It's just like a fire extinguisher. We all have a fire extinguisher at home. Hopefully we've never had to use it, right? Just like Narcan. Better to have it and not need it, but need it and not have it. So there's no stigma. Please leave here today with one. Please do. And without further delay, I want to get to our speakers because we have a plethora of speakers from a wide variety of different backgrounds here today. And I want to introduce our first speaker of the day. A man that I've been working with for the last couple of years on my job and helping. I've never met a judge who cares more about people in recovery than the man that I'm up here introducing. The man who is a leader of a treatment court and the treatment team. And when I say team, I emphasize team, Barbara, because he says, how can I help these people? What can we do to help these people? He doesn't believe in institutionalization. He believes in rehabilitation. And without further delay, I want to give you guys the Honorable Judge William J. Watson.
Many times I feel like I have multiple personalities because, while I'm truly thankful for the wonderful introduction, there are also probably out here in the crowd and know in the city that think all I want to do is throw people in jail. Did you ever have one of those days where you just scratch your head and you wonder, is everything that I'm doing working? Could I be doing something better? Am I good at my job? And as a judge, those answers can come in many different forms. Just today, I was having a conversation in drug court via electronic devices. We're virtually in drug court now with a young man that's in residential treatment, and they're recommending a higher level of care. Now, I've had this same conversation millions of times with the individual that's saying, but judge, just let me go home. I've been clean for so long. And it's like, no, the recommendation is a higher level of care. That's what you need to do. And in this particular conversation, which, I can write the transcript even before it's said as to how the conversation will go, I look at him and say, I have been doing this for longer than you've been alive. And then I thought about that after. It's like, I've been doing this for 21 years. If you can do me a favor, raise your hand if you know someone that has died of an overdose. Now keep your hand in the air if that person died within the last 21 years. I don't think any of the hands went down. Those occurred on my watch. Those occurred while I'm doing a drug court and trying to keep people alive. But then I come to an event like today, and it's like preaching to the choir. Like the first 5 people that I talked to today came up and said, thank you for saving my life. Thank you for giving me that chance. And unfortunately, some people said, thank you for trying, even though it wasn't successful. Being a judge can be tough because if I help somebody, I usually never see them again. If I don't help them, I see them over and over and over again. And when individuals are unsuccessful in the programs that I give them, very rarely do they leave blaming themselves, right? Who do they blame if they fail drug court? Yesterday, I was walking into work. There was a young lady in the hallway, I've known her for years, and she's glaring. And I said, hello. She said, I'm mad at you. Join the club, but I'm sorry. You put my child in jail. I said, I knew the situation, I know the person, and I knew what the conversation was. And I said, well, I can't talk about cases, but I can let you know that if I put somebody in jail, it's probably because they didn't succeed at the multiple opportunities that I offered them. And in this particular case, the person refused to do treatment and probation, which basically left me with absolutely no other option. Yet when that's imposed, it's my fault. You people know about living with addicts. I'm sure it's ripped your families apart. So you guys know better than I the game that is played between accountability and responsibility and blame. But it drives me nuts. Everything we do in this program is designed to keep people alive. And I've shaken some hands today, and I've seen some people that I have not been able to be successful with. Pictures on this table of individuals that I was there when they were arrested. I was there when they entered treatment court. I was there when they met the person they fell in love with. I was around when they got married. I was around when they had their first child. I was around, in fact, present and invited to the first birthday party for that little boy. And then I heard about the breakup. I heard about the relapse. And I heard about why that person is now a picture rather than someone sitting out here. I always try to figure out what it will take to get somebody to stick in recovery. And I don't know if it'll take 21 more years of me hitting my head against the wall to realize there's no answer to that. Even though, boy, if I could find that and give it to people, maybe we'll help more than we do. So there are plenty of days when I go home kicking myself about those that can't be here anymore, or the ones that are struggling, and I can see they're heading down that path for them to become a picture in the future. But then again, I come here and I see some successes. I see that it can work. Nobody has the answers. Nobody knows when they're going to be in that right spot, but we know it can happen. I've always talked about the stigma associated with addiction and how we need, as a community, as a country, as a world, to embrace this disease, acknowledge it, and fight against it. It still doesn't happen as much as it should. If you look around today, we're seeing the stigma of mental health be broken down a little bit. We're starting to accept that this is a disease that people suffer from. When we have Naomi, the great tennis player, stepping up, we have Michael Phelps stepping up, and they're talking about mental health. At least we're having those conversations, and people can say, I have this, please help, and the world will listen. I still don't think we're in a place where someone can stand up and say, I'm an addict, and the world will listen and help them. There's still that blame that is put on that person, that shame for them to come out of the darkness. But until they do, I don't know if things are going to change. Look at all these people here. We need to be seen so change happens. Look at all these people here. You need to be heard for change to happen. We need to treat addiction like every other disease out there, which is something that can be treated, something that can be lived with, and something that should not result in individuals leaving their families and becoming photographs on a table. In Lockport, we will always keep our doors open to those that need it. We will always make efforts to help. We will give the hard advice even when people don't want to hear it. And we will keep trying to force people down that right path. Now, you and I both know that most individuals that need to go down that path will fight like heck if you're being forced, but they also won't do it if the path is left wide open of their own choosing. Every time I have an individual in our treatment court that comes back in on warrant, after an extended period of time, they get dragged in shackles and cuffs. And the thing they say to me is, but Judge, I really want this program. Even though they just were out on warrant, not seeking help, just got picked up for a new arrest, dealing drugs, the whole works. Recovery isn't something that can be said. It's something that needs to be acted upon. And for individuals that are in that disease, they need a family around them to let them know that there's only one choice for them to make, because they're going to see others. Unfortunately, we sometimes fight against family members that are telling them to do the wrong things. But one thing that I love about this community are all the people that are here, because it takes a family to get someone to change. But sometimes that family it doesn't have to be blood related. They have to be your sponsors, your supports. The one thing I like best about our treatment court is the team that we have, because we have Doug and we have so many caring people. That's the family that I'm talking about that need to surround our addicts, let them know it's time to change, and to show them the way. So thank you very much for letting me be here. But when you leave, be heard, be seen, and let's do what we can to help everyone. Thank you.
One more round of applause for Judge Watson, please, everyone. A trailblazer in our community in the recovery field. Thank you, Your Honor. We're going to keep it moving right along. Our next speaker is Sheriff Filicetti from the Niagara County Sheriff's Department. Come on, Sheriff Filicetti. Give him a big round of applause, folks.
Good evening, everybody. Judge Watson is always a tough act to follow, so I'm going to do my best. It's my honor to be here tonight for overdose awareness. You can never do enough of these events. It's great to see the crowd here bringing attention to this. I just want to thank you all for being here. I think it's important that we continue to drive this home, that we need to help our addicts and we need to support them. And the more we can do as a community, I think we're going to continue to push forward. We're going to continue to help our people suffering from addiction. I get asked a lot, as law enforcement, what are you doing? What can you do? And I can tell you one thing we're not going to be able to do. We're not going to be able to arrest our way out of this. That is not going to work. So just merely arresting people, putting them in jail is not the answer. Niagara County is no different than any other place in New York State or across the country. We have our drug problems. We have our substance abusers. So how do we deal with that here in Niagara County? How are we going to help? And really what I want to focus on is what we're doing at the county level and what we're doing as the sheriff's office to try to assist and try to help with different programs and different things that we're doing. We joined the Niagara County Opiate Task Force that was created about 5 years ago by the Niagara County Legislature. And the mission was clear for that task force: improve the delivery of services for those affected, fortify the community response with the goal of eliminating addiction, illness, and death from opiate use. The goal was to save lives and eliminate addiction. Many ideas came from the Opiate Task Force and also from our law enforcement subcommittee, which we serve on. Broadly, we look to increase access to drop-off sites for unwanted prescriptions, work with medical providers, work with widespread community education, create new diversion program ideas, and new treatment program ideas. We work with our partners on the committee, Niagara County Mental Health, our partner police agencies, the Niagara County Emergency Management Office, the Niagara County District Attorney's Office, Chairman Becky Whittish from the legislature, and many others. And I think we came up with a pretty solid plan on how we were moving forward. We expanded our drug drop-off bins throughout the county. And believe it or not, since its inception, we've taken in over 21,000 pounds of prescription drugs, unwanted prescription drugs. 21,000 pounds, that's a lot of unwanted prescriptions. We expanded our Narcan program at the sheriff's office. Every single uniformed deputy out on the street carries Narcan with them, several doses of Narcan. Our deputies have saved lives. And when we first started doing Narcan, I had somebody come up to me and say, "Why are you doing that? Why are you carrying Narcan?" Almost kind of like, "Why are you bothering with that?" Because we save lives. It's simple. It's a miracle drug. And our deputies have saved lives. And what does that do? That gives us another chance for that individual to help themselves. If we didn't show up with that Narcan, they may not be here today. So I think anybody that questions the Narcan program is very ill-informed. It's been very successful for us. And there's also the misconception that it's certain socioeconomic statuses that this affects. And they couldn't be more wrong. We go everywhere in this county and we run into problems where we have to use Narcan. And we're going to continue to do that, and we're going to continue to save lives with that program. We recently implemented LEAD, the Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program. Again, what are we trying to do here? It's kind of something similar to what Judge Watson was talking about. We're trying to break the cycle of incarceration. So what law enforcement assisted diversion is, you find somebody, you're going to arrest them on a low-level charge, and it's identified that they have some type of substance abuse issue. We have the opportunity now to hold those charges in abeyance rather than bring them back to jail, put them into the system again. As long as the victim of the crime agrees, We can hold those in abeyance, and then we turn them over. We call it a warm handoff to services to get them right into services right here in the community. And we hold it in abeyance as long as they're completing what they're supposed to be completing. And I think this gives us an opportunity to try to break that cycle and stop arresting people over and over and over again when really what they probably need is help. Several years ago, we received a designation called the HIDTA designation here in this county. And it's really not a good designation to have. It's a high intensity drug trafficking area. That's not a good designation to have. But what did that do for us? That got us resources from the federal government. We now have an analyst who looks at all the data on overdoses and helps us track. And it really does help us focus our efforts here in the county using this analyst to direct us. With our Criminal Investigation Bureau and our Drug Task Force, we now send them to any overdose death. And what does that do? We're trying to track back to figure out where the poison came from that caused the overdose death. So we're trying to go after the people that may be putting fentanyl in the drugs and nobody knew about it. So we are really trying to track back and get the source, essentially, of the drugs that are coming into the community. The drug treatment in our facility, in our correctional facility, we have a drug treatment pod. Best Self is here. I see the green tent over there. I'm very proud of the drug treatment program that we have in the jail. Essentially, it includes individual and group counseling in the treatment pod. The program's primary focus is identifying and engaging candidates for administration of MAT, medication-assisted treatment. They may use Vivitrol, Suboxone, Subutex, and Methadone as they're returning to the community. They offer services to individuals identified as having been prescribed MAT prior to incarceration. And they also do discharge planning prior to their release. Since the date of inception in December of 2017, we've served over 900 inmates that have come through our facility. So I'm very, very proud of that program. I think we're doing some good right in the correctional facility. And really that program goes hand in hand with other programs. We're trying to offer job skills, GED programs, culinary, wood shop. We're trying to give people, maybe while you're in our jail, you can get cured of your substance or be on your way of being cured for your substance abuse, and also obtain a skill so that when you get out, you don't fall back in to the pattern that you were in before you came into our jail. Over the last few weeks, we rolled out iPads for our mental health program. What this does, a lot of times we're in remote areas of the county. We now have iPads that have access to mental health professionals that we can access right at the scene. We don't have to wait for somebody to maybe drive 45 minutes or an hour, and they can talk to the individual. The mental health professional can talk to the individual right at the scene. And I'm hoping this is going to be a successful program. It's about 2 weeks old. But again, partners with Niagara County Mental Health, I think it's going to be a very, very good program for us. And I'm sure you've all seen, I guess I'll say what really has me concerned. During COVID, our numbers of overdoses spiked like crazy. And I don't know if it was a feeling of helplessness, the feeling that maybe help wasn't there, but they really, really shot up. And just by the numbers, in 2019, we had 340 overdoses, and 29 of those were overdose deaths. That was way too high, and that was 2019. We had worked to bring those numbers down. In 2020, during COVID, we had 525 overdoses, and 59 of those were overdose deaths. So if you think about that, it's a 50% increase in overdoses and 100% increase in overdose deaths during COVID. I know we had several meetings to try to figure out how we can address this. The biggest thing we came out with was keep pushing the message out and the information out that help is still available to you. That just because COVID's going on, it doesn't mean that we're not here to help or the services aren't here to help. So they took the county pushed more on the campaign to get help out there and made sure that people were aware that the help was still there, that because COVID was there, we wouldn't shut everything down. In 2021, so far, we've had 380 overdoses, including 61 overdose deaths. Still very, very high, very alarming. So when I look out at this crowd and I think of all the people this is near and dear to you, and know that we're going to continue to push this message and we're going to continue to work together, we need to be doing that because the numbers are going the wrong way. And I don't know if there's anybody here that has a better explanation other than COVID and increased stress. We saw numbers spike in domestic violence and mental health as well in 2020 into 2021. Very concerning. So we need to continue our efforts to push those numbers back the other way. I do want to recognize one of our partners. I mentioned Best Self. They've been absolutely tremendous. I don't know if they can hear me back there all the way in the green tent, but they've been absolutely tremendous to work with in the jail and also as partners for our LEAD program. I'm going to end with this. I want you to know that I'm committed. And that's not, as I said at the beginning, it's not just arresting our way out of this, because that is not what's going to work. It's a community effort. All of our community partners, Judge Watson that's here, it takes the whole community, as he said, to get this problem turned around and going the right way. So at the Sheriff's Office, we're committed to continue doing our part, continuing to offer innovative programs, doing what we can to help bring down substance abuse in Niagara County. So I appreciate you having me here tonight, and I just want you to, I appreciate everybody being here. It's a tremendous night and a tremendous crowd. So thank you very much.
As you know, another round of applause for Sheriff Bilisetti, please. Thank you. Thank you for coming out. All right, I just want to talk about a few quick things. We got some tables set up that came out. I want to give shout outs to the PATH program, GRASP, Best Self, Beacon Center, North Point, White Deer Run, Evergreen Health Services, Pinnacle, Save the Michaels, Alba Davida, In His Name Outreach, Anchoring Hope of Western New York, along with Best Self. Give them a round of applause, everyone. And our next speaker that I'm going to introduce is someone who I've had the pleasure to meet today and have conversations with her and her husband over the last couple of weeks, and got to know them and the transparency that they've went through in their process of grieving the loss of their child is admirable, to say the least. They're here on behalf of GRASP, as I already mentioned, which stands for Grief Recovery After Substance Passing, and it was created to offer understanding, compassion, and support for those who have lost someone they love through addiction and overdose. And without further delay, I want to invite Julie Alexander up here, please. Give her a round of applause.
Good evening. I want to thank the organizers of this event. I think it's something that we need. This solution needs to be community-based. I'm a member of the local GRASP chapter. It's a national organization really suited to help people who've lost their loved one to overdose. And we meet once a month, every first Sunday, and it's really a peer-led group. So there's no professionals there. It's really just the families, the friends, the husbands, the wives, the parents of those who've lost children and significant others. So it was my lifeline after I lost my daughter 3 years ago. I lost Madeline at 25 years old. She overdosed on fentanyl, and her journey was very short. Unfortunately, with this substance, there's not a lot of time to save our loved ones. Thank you. We don't get second chances with fentanyl, and that's what I found. I thought I had more time with her. As I said, her journey was 18 months. And when I found out she was using heroin, I thought I was going to be able to fix it. I thought I was going to talk to the doctor, I was going to talk to the insurance company, and I was going to get her a plan. Well, I walked into my doctor's office, and he handed me a phone number. That was the plan that I got. So I found myself kind of floundering around trying to figure out, how do I get her treatment? How do I get her well? And it was, we brought her back. She was in Nashville, and we found her that she was using down there. So we brought her back to Buffalo to get her help in around Labor Day. Finally, in January, we had hope of getting her into treatment, but she wouldn't go. She wouldn't go because she couldn't smoke cigarettes in treatment. It was like, oh my gosh, how can I convince her that, it's so important to go into treatment? But, all through her addiction, I thought, we have a chance to save her. I was under the delusion that this wasn't going to happen to my kid. This is not the way she was going to go. She was a very strong girl, and we were a normal family. We took vacations every year. We were very tight, and it wasn't going to happen to us. Well, I found out how wrong I was, and the day that I lost her, our family changed forever. Nothing was ever the same. The family traditions that we did every year, we couldn't do that anymore. There was a huge hole in our family, and GRASP was one of the lifelines that I really clung on to. I really gained an understanding of what addiction is about and what the struggles she was going through. I didn't have an appreciation of how difficult it was to walk away from the drug. And through talking to parents and peers, I've learned a lot of things that I didn't realize. And, the guilt around losing a child, you feel like it identifies you as a terrible parent. And I really got to realize all of the complexity around addiction. It's not a quick fix. There's no magic to finding treatment. And the other thing that I found interesting throughout is that our family suffered in silence. I was too ashamed, and I thought there was a stigma associated with her using heroin, so I didn't share it with anybody. So we really suffered in silence, and we didn't talk to anyone about it. And I think that's part of the problem with this, is that families feel unsupported because they're too ashamed to admit that their child is suffering. One of the things that there's a couple things that I've learned once, after we lost her, and with meeting with the GRASP folks, is that love cannot cure the disease. So as much as you love them and want to support them and get them well, that's not enough. I couldn't fight the battle for her. So I always thought that, geez, if I could help support her, if I could do this for her or that, she was going to be able to make it through. But they have to fight the battle themselves with you supporting them. There is no bottom to the disease. She overdosed before, she passed. And it didn't stop her from going back to heroin and to fentanyl. So, there is no such thing as a bottom. So that delusion was overcome. And then, from talking to other parents within the group, that this is a lifelong struggle. There's been, instances where they're 3 years clean, and then all of a sudden something happens in their life and it's a trigger to cause them to use again. So, it's a struggle for all of these children, these parents, these relatives that are struggling with disease. It doesn't just go away. And I've heard a number of people talk about there's no one solution to this disease. So what works for one person may not work for another. So we have to give different alternatives and have a toolkit that we can use and go to help these people overcome the addiction. And then most importantly, our doctors need to be better educated. This is no different than if I brought my daughter in and she had cancer. They need a toolkit to be able to say, this is a program I can put you in, or this is the structure we can give you to fight the disease, instead of being just kind of handed a number to say, here, see what you can do with this treatment center. So I think doctors need to be better educated on the disease. And then, mental health plan has to be part of the recovery. Generally speaking, at least with a lot of people that I've spoken with, there was an underlying issue about coping with life. With my daughter, it was transitioning into adulthood. She had graduated college. She didn't quite know where she fit in and what her future was. And I think she really lost confidence, and it was her coping mechanism. And then silence and shame. That's a big one for me. The lack of education about the disease, and that all these families are going unsupported because we're all too ashamed to talk about the disease. And I've learned that when somebody asks me about my family, I tell them my daughter passed from an overdose. It didn't define who she was. It wasn't about her moral character. It was something that she was suffering. She died from mental illness, not a moral failing. And so I think most importantly, I think we need to change the stigma associated with this disease. And once we change that, then people will become more aware and open up and be more willing to offer help to our community. These are our daughters, our sons, and no one's immune from this disease. So I'm so happy that we're all here. I think it's a sign in the right direction, and I'm here for the fight. I hope I can save one person from the same trauma that my family has gone through. So thank you.
Round of applause for the first mother to share her story today. Thank you, Juliet and Bill. Thank you for coming out and sharing your stories. God bless you and your family. Continue the good fight. They got a great table back there with the resources as well, so follow them to their table. If you lost someone, if your family members are struggling, if there's information, please hit these tables. I cannot emphasize this enough. There's a plethora of wealthy information out there. Like I said, the Narcan tables, we have these snazzy little purple shirts that are good for every year because they don't have a year on them. They're over here at this front left table, 1 for $15 and 2 for $25. If you guys are interested, there's also wristbands over there. Thank you once again, Juliet and Bill, for coming out from GRASP. Our next speaker is a person that I've had the pleasure of working with and seeing on a monthly basis. And when she see me today, she said, "It's nice to see you, not on the iPad or on Zoom, right? Because we get to build these relationships." And she's coming all the way out here from the 585 from Rochester, from Recovery Fitness. I want to talk a little bit about the agency that she's with. She's with Recovery Fitness. It's a supportive community of physical active individuals brought together by sober living, committed to creating an environment of healing and recovery. Members, friends, and families are empowered to discover their inner strength and confidence through adventure, fun, and camaraderie. And every year, when I see this group in Albany for the recovery conference, and they ride their bikes all the way from Rochester to Albany, I ask them, why would you do that when you could have drove? So without further delay, I give you guys Lisa Nichols.
Hello. If you are like Doug, you might be wondering why the crazy people would come all the way from Rochester to here. I just want to say it's the community, right? When somebody in our community, and I say our because I am a person in recovery, I'm an affected family member, and I'm a lover of every human here. I may not know you personally, but we're connected in a very special way. And when anybody in the community sends out that signal, you know as well as I do, we're all going to be there, right? I can't speak to my craziness, though, because I am riding a bike again for some reason, 300 miles to Albany. You can come join us. But before I get to that, let me just tell you a little bit about Recovery Fitness. Our guiding light is one, we want to offer those alternative pathways. We hear about them, but what do they look like? Well, it's as simple as this. Hey, I really like walking in the woods and looking at trees. Do you want to come walk with me? It's a safe place. I'm not going to talk about going to the bar. I'm not going to talk about using unless I'm talking about it in a positive way and how I overcame that in my life. Really, what I'm going to do is just live life because that's what we recover for. Sometimes it's working out in the gym. Sometimes it's going kayaking or camping or doing something that I've never done before, even though I'm terrified because my community sends out that signal, right? And it all comes back to that. And for me, that's great joy. And on my drive here, I was impressed with the beauty of the area that I got here. I get to meet somebody in person for the first time. I also ran into another human who's sharing their story. Liza, definitely check out her table. I've been using her promotional material to teach others. I didn't realize she was right in my state. I don't think we realize the power that we have as individuals because we're just living our lives and we're rippling out and affecting people in ways we don't even know. And I can't wait till the lives out here ripple into new parts of how I conduct myself. And Recovery Fitness, the other part, it's not just the community, it's also reducing stigma through being very loud in our recovery. We go places and we show off that we're in recovery. We support anonymity when people choose that, but for us, we think that it's important to reduce stigma through saying, hey, look at us. We're cleaning up the environment. We're having fun. We're enjoying life. We're helping each other. We're supporting our community. And we're people who have recovered from a substance use disorder. And that reduction of stigma is so important. And when I look here, I see the same thing. And it's fun stuff. Who here is an athlete in their background, like high school, elementary school? Right, we got some athletes out there. Who here likes doing art and creative things? Yes, we got that. Recovery takes that and just says, let's do it in a safe space. And I was thinking about our message, and I was like, geez, sometimes it feels so inappropriate to come to overdose awareness and talk about all of the joy in my life and in the lives I get to affect through this recovery journey in our organization. But there's something so important that I've been learning, and that's that joy and grief are together. I can only feel joy as deep as I recognize the grief that exists in my experience. To lock out the grief and pretend it doesn't exist is going to lock out the joy, and vice versa. Sometimes it feels difficult for me to have a both and. I both mourned the people that we've lost. Sometimes it's a person I met once. They came in the gym, they worked out, and then I hear weeks later that they lost their life to an overdose. Sometimes it's someone I know personally in a professional manner. It's been my friends that I went to high school with. And it's also me every single night leaving my phone on because my dad is still out there struggling with his addiction. And I'm just waiting for that phone call, right? There's grief, but there's immense joy. And if I don't recognize that grief, I won't feel the joy. So that's really important. And I just wanted to share that message with you today. So it's not that when we choose to continue our lives after a great loss, that we're forgetting what happened, but we're remembering that we are humans. And to recover is a re-emergence of ourselves. It's not to become somebody new. It's to find who we were always meant to be and come back to ourselves. And that includes joy. The other thing I wanted to bring up that's also been on my mind is stigma. We hear it all of the time. I think every speaker has actually mentioned it. And I can't not mention it because it's important. I just want to share a personal example. I have a friend who is, well, you don't know her. I'm from Rochester. I can share. She's 76. She went to school at Harvard and Cornell. She has been a professor at a prestigious university. And months ago, she started telling me that she was having stomach aches. And it felt strange. I thought, oh, maybe she's coming down with some some chronic illness or possibly something terminal. Then one day she was acting a little bit differently. She seemed perky and more like herself than she'd ever been, but a little bit goofy. And we had a conversation, and she expressed that she's been using opiates for a back problem for 8 years. And all of a sudden her pharmacy is accusing her of stealing pills and getting prescriptions early, but she thinks they're stealing from her. When I even tried to broach the subject of physical dependence, right? This is where stigma hits the wall. She cannot see addiction because in her mind, addiction is for drug addicts and they're different people. Physical dependence. It was a good intention. It was a true need, and it got out of control. And she doesn't see that it's out of control until it's too late. Right? That's one story. What about my family member? They hold down a job. They take care of their grandchildren. They can't go a day without the substance that they're dependent upon. They don't see themselves as addicts because that's different. But if I use that term physical dependence or substance use, it's different. I can open a door. I'm not saying the word addict is bad. I'm just saying sometimes it carries along with it a history and an image and a picture that prevents people who truly identify with that label from embracing it. So I just want to offer one thing, if anything, one word, addict. You can hold it dear to your heart, but when you're talking and you're in the community, try substance use disorder. Try chemically dependent. Try suffering. Try human in need of support. All of these are alternatives for us to broaden the community, to shine the light on the fact, like it was mentioned from other speakers, that this is an issue in our tissues. This is a disease. So that brings me full circle to where I started. If it's an issue in our tissues, fitness belongs in that picture of wellness. You know, we say harm reduction. Well, fitness is a way for me to reduce my anxiety, for me to reduce the other health issues in my life, for me to increase my social network. Working out alone sucks. Nobody wants to do it. So that's why we embrace fitness. You know, I have a table here and materials I hope that you'll take with you. I know not many of you will be in Rochester working out with us, but you don't need rock recovery fitness to go for a walk, to go on a hike, to swim, do some burpees. Everybody loves those. And the last thing I'll bring up is harm reduction. It's also one of those words we hear a lot. And a few weeks ago, I had the privilege of being at an event targeted towards youth, and a wonderful organization put together this poster of harm reduction for youth. Think about this. If I want my teeth to stay nice, which by the way I do, and I brush them, I could just stop eating sugar. I could just not drink coffee or tea, and I'm going to do fairly well. But what do I do instead? I eat the sugar, drink the coffee, brush my teeth twice a day, and I chew xylitol gum in between because it makes me feel like I'm preventing tooth decay. That's harm reduction. Nobody bats an eye when you say you brush your teeth to keep them healthy. But sometimes when we talk about the medications we use to keep ourselves healthy, there's a problem. And I think maybe if we can integrate this word harm reduction into more of our everyday occurrences, when I go to the gym, that's harm reduction. I can get really angry if I'm not getting my workouts in. You don't want to see me on the road like that. And again, here I am bringing laughter and whimsy into it. And it's not because I'm negating the large grief and the tragedy and the trauma that we've all experienced, but those things have to live together for us to walk forward. So I just want to thank you for being such a wonderful, tight-knit community where I've got the opportunity to meet the humans that brought me here. And I'm excited to learn more from all the tables.
Come on, continue that round of applause for Lisa. Come all the way out here from the 585. Lisa and her team continue to pour into us so we can continue to give back in an effective way here in our community. So when she was talking about the ripple effect of recovery and the collaboration that we have in this whole recovery field, the recovery world, and as people, I want you guys to look to the left and to the right and tell that person next to you that I'm here for you. Right now, do me a favor and look to your left and to your right and say, I am here for you, please. Lisa, thank you so much for coming out here and continuing to pour. She is a leader in the Peer Learning Collaborative, which we meet monthly, and they hold a safe space for us to talk about what we go through as peers and how we help the people so we can decompress and continue to give back in our communities. So once again, thank you, Lisa. Followed up with our next speaker, Yeah, we can laugh. See that stuff? Back-to-back Lisas, and then Eliza. Don't know how that happened. Another mother is going to come up here and share her warrior story of her grief and her loss and the struggles that they went through as a family. And I bring you guys Lisa Lamprecht. Round of applause. Let's go.
Good evening. My name is Lisa, and I've been invited here to speak today about the overdose death of my daughter, Charlotte. She was 37 years old when she died. Her death certificate lists fentanyl, heroin, and morphine, the drugs that took her away from us for the very last time. To be honest, I was really nervous about getting up here to speak to you today because, like Judge Watson mentioned, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir. I don't think there is anyone here who has not been touched by substance use disorder at some level, whether you're a volunteer in recovery, you've lost someone, you may be in active addiction, but to all of you, to me, you're part of my family. We're bonded in a way that a lot of people don't understand. So I prayed for words. I need the words to express how I feel about what happened to her and what has happened to me and all the people who loved her. It's all about the words. When I found her in her apartment on the 9th of January in 2017, I had no words. Even though we had conversations about the dangers of the drugs she used, her risk of relapse, even though I had spoken my fear out loud about losing her to an overdose, even though I spent 7 years looking out the window before I went to sleep to see if the police were coming to tell me that she had died, I had no words, and neither did the people that sat with me. Everyone who joined me just sat and stared at me. We sat for hours in silence. We tried to make sense of the fact that she had lost her battle, that the drugs won in the end, and that really pissed me off. It's not an easy thing to accept. I have deep gratitude for my family and friends who stood by me during this time. I'm not sure I'd still be here if it wasn't for them. And I've also been gifted with the grace from God, undeserved, unasked for, but here I am. Charlotte was a beautiful child whose life was filled with trauma, tragedy, and pain. It was also filled with love and laughter. It was such a paradox. She had so much potential, such insight, and now it was all over. I'm ashamed to admit that there was a time that I prayed for this to end, but I never thought that it would end in her death. She was in active addiction off and on from the age of 17. That's 20 years. She started using drugs before fentanyl was the issue that it is today. She overdosed for the first time at the age of 11. I asked her to clean her room. It was chore day. She wasn't feeling very motivated, so she took some of the albuterol she was supposed to be taking for her asthma. She was on a very aggressive treatment program to keep her from being sick. I didn't know that she would even think of doing something like that. But when she told me she felt funny and that her heart was racing, we had to go to the emergency room, and that's where she admitted what she did. Charlotte was already in counseling at that point, so it seemed like a natural place to address the issue. She started in counseling when she was 7 years old because she was molested by her stepfather's nephews, who were 16 and 9 when she was 7. She started to hurt herself when she got upset. We found a wonderful counselor after a lot of looking, and it's not as easy as you think to get help. You always believe, or I always did, that if I need help, we were going to find it right away and we would know what to do. But we fired a couple people and worked hard to find a good situation. She also encouraged myself and my husband to go into counseling too, because it wasn't just Charlotte's issue. Charlotte participated in group sessions for after-school programs for kids. She was in residential treatment. She was hospitalized for attempting suicide. She had overdosed multiple times. She started cutting on herself and starting fires. She was also diagnosed with borderline personality traits, depression, and anxiety. While these services were needed and helpful at the time, it also turned Charlotte into a sophisticated patient. She knew what to do and what to say to get her way. Addicts can be manipulative. She was very intelligent, and because she was in treatment or counseling for most of her life, I think when she was discharged after 2 years of long-term rehab, that made it harder for her to get services at the level she was at. Charlotte didn't start out using street drugs. She had many accidents and several near-death experiences. She really believed that nothing was going to kill her. She got sucked out in the ocean in a riptide when she was 5 and almost drowned. She got electrocuted at work, which resulted in her having severe nerve damage and reflex sympathetic dystrophy. Very painful. Went through many procedures and therapy. She was also in a serious auto accident because she was drinking, which left her with a traumatic brain injury. The doctors were quick to prescribe opiates, sleeping pills, mood stabilizers, and more. She became physically dependent on those drugs. She began to abuse those drugs. Then they decide to cut her off. You're abusing your medication. You're done. She turned to street drugs. She did go to rehab, and that time for me was a blessing. Charlotte came back to herself and was able to really work on herself. She felt proud of accomplishing and finishing things, to express herself and to realize that she was a good person and that she could have a happy and a healthy life. I don't think she believed it until then. It was a blessing for me to watch the color return to her skin, to see her eyes wide open and clear, to see her smile and laugh. It began to heal our relationship, and I thank God for this time. And all of this part of since losing her would have been so much harder if we hadn't had that time and witnessed her fight for her life. She went to day treatment when she was released. She had been through those entry-level groups before. She was bored with the routine. There weren't a lot of upper level, as I refer to them, services or programs available to her other than the group meetings and 12-step meetings, which vary depending on the group. I really don't know how it could be better, but I know the system is overwhelmed with the number of people like her. I am very grateful to all the people who worked and helped her. They made a difference in her life. I think we're moving towards a greater acceptance of people with substance abuse disorder. I believe that the judgment many people in our culture have towards people like my daughter and our family will fade as understanding grows. So many people have been touched by this epidemic at every level of society. Rich, poor, male, female, it does not care. In retrospect, I think one of the hardest things was witnessing the level of separation that substance abuse disorder creates. It separated Charlotte from her family, her friends, from spirit, from community, and ultimately from herself. And I think that is what's going on with the separation because of COVID, and those numbers are going up. The separation fueled her need to escape. It was a vicious cycle. We didn't have an easy relationship. I'm very stubborn. I didn't understand until after she died how much my daughter really suffered, because I was always trying to figure out how to make it better. It's not easy to face the mistakes that I made raising her, but I do know that I did my best, and I never gave up, and I accepted responsibility for my part in enabling her. It took me a long time to realize what I was really doing. By the time she went to rehab, I was no longer an enabler. And within 3 weeks of the rest of my family stopping to enable her, she sought treatment. This is important. You don't want to help them hurt themselves. It's not easy to say no. It challenges every ounce of your being to change the paradigm we lived and grew up under. It takes courage, work, and tears, and is worth every second to heal ourselves and our family lineage. We forgave each other during the last 2 years of her life. About a week before she died, Charlotte thanked me for being her mother. She told me that no other person could have or would have done what I did for her. And I never realized until that moment how much I needed to hear those words and how much I treasure them now. I also learned that my job was to stand behind her and remind her that she was capable, that she was worth it, and that I would never abandon her. To hold hope for her, that was my mother's sacred duty. I also want to make sure that everyone knows that Charlotte had a beautiful heart. She cared deeply for her friends and family. She called her grandma every night and adored her aunties. She was a talented artist. I still have many of her drawings displayed in my home. She was passionate about the outdoors. She swam and hiked and windsurfed, rode motorcycles and swam in the river and the ocean. She loved to fish and to drive and to have fun. Listening to music and digging for crystals were her passion. Her laughter was infectious. She could make me laugh so very hard that my cheeks would hurt and tears would run down my face. I also will never forget how kind she was to me when I had surgery. She cared for me like I was her child. For me, I have to keep working every day to make my life better. I learned that I learned that grief isn't something you get through, rather it becomes part of your life. I relate to the statement that grief is just love with nowhere to go. I've had to challenge myself to create a new way to be in the world. I cry almost every day without apology. I learned to journal and be honest about my feelings. I learned I'm not the only one. I learned to break the no talk rules. I changed my routine. The old way does not serve. I'm tougher. I say no faster, and I'm more sensitive. I'm in the moment and grateful for the love and happy memories I shared with my girl, and I would do it everything, all of it, all over again. I'm not afraid of anything anymore, except for snakes. I'm still afraid of snakes. I'd also like to talk for a minute about support. 2 months ago, I was in a grocery store checking out, and a random woman in the next lane just starts to talk to me, to tell me about how she lost her son to a drug overdose a year ago. Her name is Heather. It took the time to ring up $100 worth of groceries for me to learn this woman's whole life. She was in the hospital when her son died. There was a divorce. There's family problems. No one will talk to her about her son. Her family, her friends, even her own children will not speak to her. I was heartbroken. I'm like, how can this woman not have anybody? I turned around to offer her my phone number. She was gone. I drove around in the parking lot till I found her and gave her my phone number, which is not something I normally would have done. It made me realize how lucky I am to have other people with me that stand with me to help me through this. We understand the hole in each other's hearts. So if you're not sure what to do, step out of your comfort zone. Make the move to connect. It matters. If you're Heather and somebody offers you a phone number, take it. Use it. We'll listen. pick up the phone, reach out, and make the move to connect. I'm proud that my family has told the truth about Charlotte's addiction, substance use disorder from day one. We didn't lie about it, even though there were people in my immediate family that wanted us to lie even at her wake. I found her in her bedroom with her head on a nightstand that was full of heroin. There was no way that I needed to wait for the coroner's report to tell me what had happened. So in the midst of my greatest loss, I'm not alone. There are people who have it worse than me. They've lost more than one child to substance use disorder. So guess what I'm trying to say is speak out. Don't feel awkward about approaching someone. Give them a smile, some hope, an ear to listen. Remember to be kind. Tell the truth, and it's how our children will be remembered. I also want to thank Desiree for inviting me here today and the love and support of my husband, Michael. Thank you for allowing me to speak today and allowing me to serve. Thank you.
Another round of applause for Lisa and her husband, Michael, please. I got my little intern with me, guys. She wanted to come up. Say hi. Hi. Say don't use. That's right. All right, so our next speaker is a dear friend of mine, a predecessor, a trailblazer in many fields. And I was just looking back in my messages from May of 2019 when we were both traveling out to Albany. And I was on the side of the road with a flat tire, and she was coming out to carry a message of hope at a place that we go for our recoveries. And she rescued me and my family on the side of the road. And we continued on our journey and let the tow truck take my dad's van, which you still owe me money for that tire, to the place. And we went on. And this person has been a person consistent in my recovery for the 5.5 years that I've been giving back to the community. And before I do introduce her, I want to give a shout out to my family who continue to support me and make this easy for me to do, and the countless hours that they sacrifice in the love and support that my parents, my brother, who over here, raise your hand, who tackled me and got me clean 5.5 years ago, gave me the opportunity of a lifetime that I'll forever be grateful for, man. There's no wrong way to love your loved one, as you've heard today. Desiree, that was a great suggestion. Thank you for getting her up here. And my mother, my father, my loved one, my wife, the first lady, I cannot forget to shout her out or I will not hear the end of it, guys. She makes it all possible. She holds my household together. Just makes it look easy for me. Our sound guy, Dave Small, big shout out to Dave. Wave your hand, making this happen behind the scenes up here with the technology. Jillian Moss from our community engagement team. Wave, Jillian. These guys made the heavy lifting real easy for us, and we just showed up really. So I want to give a shout out to our agency for all the countless hours that you guys have put in as well. And I want to introduce our next speaker, Liza. Come on, Liza. Big round of applause, folks.
Quiet. Hi, everybody. My name is Liza, and first of all, I always want to thank God, right, for today and for His grace and mercy, because if He'd have left it up to my device, I wouldn't be here today. So, and I also want to thank Doug and Addict to Addict and Independent Living for having me here. It's always an honor to give back, right? And I was taught a long time ago that if you want to keep what you have, then you have to give it away. So I understand that this is not something that I do on my own. So I wear, like the judge, I wear a couple of hats. I work at Evergreen Health, which is located in Buffalo, New York. And we are, thank you, did you know about Evergreen? Yes. We are definitely one of the unicorns in the health industry. My job now is community liaison. I like saying that word like that, but my job is to go out to the community and talk about hepatitis C treatment, cure, make sure people show up. I talk about shaking trees and kicking doors, right? Just making sure doing whatever needs to get done so I can help the next person get cured of Hep C. I also was had Hep C about 6 years ago and was cured. And my other hat that I wear a few again, but one of the other hats I wear is I'm one of the spokesmodels for the HIV Stops With Me campaign. It is endorsed by the New York State Department of Health. And thank you. And I'm a recovering addict. I have been in recovery for 23 years. That's right. So, 23. Yeah. Yeah. So to tell you about myself, I come from a long line of addicts. My father was an IV drug user. My mother was an IV drug user. My grandfather was an alcoholic, and it down the line. We've had a little bit of everything in my family. As a child, I always really swore off that I wouldn't end up like my parents, but here I am, right? And I was that person. You were talking about taking ownership. So I was that person that walked away willingly from their children, their family, their loved ones because of a drug. I gave up 15 years of my life on the west side of Buffalo because of a drug. I gave up my freedom and went to prison because of a drug. I became HIV positive because of a drug. And I take ownership of that because nobody forced me to do that. And it took me a long time to realize that I was the one that was making those choices. And someone talked about how we can't love it away, we can't pray it away, we can't lock it up. Somewhere along the line, something happened, right? I was given a choice. The choice was go back to Bedford, which is a women's prison, or go to long-term rehab. And I thought to myself, because I thought about it, maybe I'll go to the rehab. Went to prison, really didn't care for it, right? I'm talking about being in the middle of a prison and watching women getting rolled out in a wheelchair. And I can still distinctly remember telling myself, we're not coming back here. It wasn't that I said I wasn't going to use again, but at that moment, I didn't want to come back to prison. So I chose rehab. And I went to treatment for 28 days. And I thought I was done. And he was like, oh, no, you're not done. And I went to another place for 90 days and did that and did supported living. And along the way, I am a product of a 12-step program of Narcotics Anonymous. That's why I'm still here, right? Because I've been standing back there and I'm looking at this. And it says a time to remember and a time to act. I try to do all I can to remember where I come from and the life that I lived because I don't want to do it again, right? And I always talk about how, for me, there's a higher power in my life that he's got a funny sense of humor, right? I work with people every day and I see them every day, people that are still out here actively using, right? I work with my people that come to us for hepatitis C treatment. We talk about harm reduction. We talk about Narcan. We talk about using safely, right? So I'm reminded every day of what's happening, you know? And I thank God for the fear because I am literally scared because I don't want to be a picture on that table. I don't want to be a picture on that table. And I'm watching the families around here with your shirts with a picture of your loved one. And I'm still, sometimes I wonder, why am I still here? And I don't understand it. And it's not for me to understand. There's a purpose. I have a job to do and I need to give back. I do whatever I need to do, right? And just to touch a little on something, not to brag or boast, yes, I've been in recovery for 23 years. Yes, I've been HIV positive, living with it for 27 years, right? And sometimes when I walk into places, they still treat me like I'm that girl on the corner. And I'm here to tell you that I'm not that girl on the corner anymore. Right? I work real hard. I don't want anybody to give me anything. You know, I will work for it. I will travel to the ends of the earth to give back. Because I understand there are still many of us that are out here suffering in silence. And we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to talk about the substance use. We don't want to talk about the HIV. We don't want to talk about it. But we need to talk about it. Because that's the only way we're going to be able to do something different. Right? So why do I stay? Because sometimes people are like, oh, you're still here? You're still clean? Whatever they want to say. But yeah, I'm still in recovery. And why do I stay? I stay because of my children. I stay because of my great-grandchildren. I stay for me because I've found a better life. I stay because there's some women in the back that I work with and traveled all the way from Buffalo just for to support me, right? That's why I stay. You know, is every day for me perfect? Absolutely not. Have I thought of using? Absolutely. I've even thought about a drink. I don't even like alcohol. But that's to show you how this works, right? And we're talking about the disease of addiction. That's how it works. It doesn't care how it gets me. It just wants to get me. And its job is to kill me. So I come out and I do things like this, right? If you talk to people about me out at my job, you know, they'll be like, oh, she could be a bit much. But I understand, I believe in the peer-to-peer, right? Because who better to understand me but somebody just like me? Who's going to better call me on my stuff but somebody that's already walked that walk, right? As far as this HIV, and I just think it's kind of cool. I'm wearing my face on my shirt, right? I think this is pretty cool, but like, this is an honor. This part right here is really, really an honor for me because I thought 27 years ago I was going to die. My father died in 1984 and he was still actively using and he died from AIDS. In 2000, my mother, she was in a MAT program, but she made a conscious decision to stop taking her HIV medications and she died. So I do ask myself, why am I still here? It is an honor to still be here for me. There are many of us that are still out here suffering in silence with all of it. So if you have a family member who's struggling, don't kick them when they're down, but don't make it easy for them too. I'm a big believer in tough love, and I use that at work all the time. But I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to be there to help people just like me, right? And when there is something that happens in the room when someone is telling me how they're homeless and they haven't eaten or they're going through withdrawals and everything else that comes with that. And for me to open up and say, you know what? Me too, I've been there. There's something that happens between me and that other person. And there's a connection that is formed, you know? So I do all I can to help others. I have been a product of OD. I remember my mother kicking the door in as I was falling out. And she saved my life, right? I remember a priest standing over me in the hospital, asking me to make peace with God because it didn't look good. So do I think I'm a miracle? Absolutely. On some days I feel like I don't deserve this. So I work real hard to keep what I have and get another day of reprieve. If you're out here and you're struggling, hold on, don't use. If you think you're alone, just hold on and don't use. No matter what happens, that's my mantra. No matter what happens, where's Minnie? No matter what happens, don't use. I'm always grateful. This has definitely been a humbling experience. I appreciate everyone that's come up here to share their story. I have a table over there. Please stop by. Come get one of my little cards and stuff so I can say that I did the work. But, I'm more about coming up here and sharing my story because I want people to know that people like me are not a waste of time and that this is not going to take in the first time, right? It might take a couple times. I got a rap sheet that's 30 pages long, and I'm not bragging. Just want to help others to understand that there's hope. And if I could be a hope shot for a family member or a loved one, then I've done my job. So I thank everyone. I thank y'all for you guys back there that came out from Evergreen. I truly love you guys for coming out and supporting me. And I thank everyone has taken the time to listen to me. And like I said, I'll be over there. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Another round of applause for Liza P. Thank you, Liza. Like she said, check your table out over here on the right-hand side. There's a whole bunch of other tables, as I mentioned. I'm going to keep saying it till the end of the night. Get some priceless information. Take it home for yourself or a loved one. I want to give a shout-out to Karen here, our interpreter. She's doing a great job, guys. Give her a big round of applause, please. Thank you, Karen. Always a pleasure. And our next speaker is another dear friend of mine who also works in the recovery field for a fairly new program. He works at Best Self in conjunction with Niagara County with the PATH program. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the PATH program, and then he's going to tell you more. The PATH program stands for Presenting Alternatives, Treatment, and Healing. It's a harm reduction approach. Started in March of 2020, works closely with the first responders in Niagara County and provides post-overdose follow-up in the community. And a fierce advocate who really meets people where they're at, never forgets where he came from. I give you guys Joshua Anderson.
All right, I got props, so just give me a second.
Do you want a wireless mic?
I don't need a wireless mic. All I need is mic like that. How's that? All right. Greetings, everybody. My name is Joshua. I just need 10 seconds. All I need. Here we go. Thank you. Give it up right there. You guys will clap at anything. All right. All right. No, so, I see people with notes, right? And, I got notes. I just wanted to, let you know what my notes look like. I learned this from Liza, the young lady who was just here. Look, she is hands down the most organized person that I have met. If you ever get a chance to go to a party of hers on, I've been to her house on Memorial Day, 4th of July, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Arbor Day. I don't even know what Arbor Day is, but she's really, really organized. She always wraps up, Courtney. I see you. All right. So anyway, this is what I'm doing. What I want to do is I want to briefly tell you a little bit about me. I want to talk about what I do every single day, right? And my findings, all right? So these are my findings. First of all, I also am someone that identify being in long-term recovery. And I think that's important to know that it doesn't make a difference what color you are. It doesn't make a difference how much money your family has. It doesn't make a difference if you believe in, someone that they nailed to a chunk of wood. It doesn't make a difference, right? It doesn't make a difference if you were knocking over martinis on tennis courts or breaking bottles of Wild Irish Rose. Okay? The C of addiction catches all people. It catches individuals that sleep in parks like this, and it catches individuals that have home fronts on the lake. My job has shown that. All right? This is a little bit about me. All right. So why I qualify to be here, I think I am probably the perfect makeup of someone that might have the disease of addiction. All right? I come from a background that breeds that stuff. I know I look kind of young, but I was actually at Woodstock. I was there. Some of you young cats, you might not know about Woodstock, but I was, okay, you guys don't know, middle of 1969, August, there was a bunch of 3 days of music and love and a lot of drugs and, all that. I was there. I wasn't born until 4 months later, but I was at Woodstock. If you guys know, this is the Woodstock. Okay. All right. I was not born in this country. I was born someplace else. No, this is not if you can't see very well, this is not a picture of Disneyland. This is a picture of Toronto. All right. And it fell down. So I left Toronto at 2 weeks old. I was smuggled over the border here. And I left Niagara County when I was 19. And I went out west and I stayed there for 7 years in Los Angeles, in Hollywood. That's why I have that right there. So if you, by chance, recognize me from like a music video or a commercial or stand-in, anything like that, well, the answer is you're wrong, because I did not. The drugs did not let me do none of that crap. The drugs had me chasing one more, all right? And I found myself homeless on the streets of Los Angeles for a couple years. All right. And I was fortunate enough to find a better way of life at age 24. And I spent the last 24 years living back here in Niagara County, fighting the good fight. I'm a lifelong blue-collar worker. And working in this field is brand new to me. I've only done it for about 4 years, but I have been doing what a lot of other people in this park have been doing. Listen, I know a lot of people in this park, especially on the left side over there, the ones that are standing under those tents, all right? And let me tell you, a lot of them would do what they do for free. And I'm one of them, all right? So, and I'm really humbled by the people that are here with pictures of their loved ones on the shirts and the pictures are on the table in front of me. And what I know, dealing with individuals that are on the left side, because a lot of us go and we seek treatment and recovery in different places, and this is what we know. One of the first things that they told us early on was, look, if you decide to live well, you're going to see a lot of people, fall by the wayside. So it's really, really important that we honor them by living a certain way. Right? And that's what I try to do. And for the individuals that have lost somebody, also what I've heard is that, when someone dies, that's the end of the life. That's not the end of your relationship. Because I see you here and you're still honoring that person by showing up, right? By letting them know that they still matter. You're still raising their grandchildren. You're still, you're living a certain way for these individuals. And that's not lost on anyone that's under those tents over there. All right. So thank you very much for that kind of stuff. I really do. So here's my next. All right. Anyone recognize this? Yes, you were absolutely right. This was the album cover of the 1982 Van Halen album, Diver Down, right? Yes, it was. What it is a flag. It's a nautical flag. It's a flag that we fly over water when you're on a boat. And basically what you're saying is there's someone that's underwater, so be careful. It's an alert sign, all right? It just lets people know, pay attention, there's somebody down. And that's what me and my colleague do every single day, is we get alerts of individuals that might be down, and we actually attempt to go and help them out more than just a phone call. So first thing we do, so what happens is paramedics or law enforcement, they send the reports to my agency. And we get their address and we get their phone number. So I call their number. That's a phone if you can't see, all right? All right. And a lot of times I get a chance to talk to them, and a lot of times I don't. Because they look at me like, oh, this has got to be a salesman. So this has got to be a guy that's talking about giving me a break on my car insurance or something like that. So a lot of times they swipe left. They don't swipe right when they call me. So then what I do now? Well, then I go to the house, or I go to wherever the treatment is, all right? I go there. We knock. We'll ring. We'll bang. We'll just try to get their attention, okay? And you got to know, that works every single time. Well, maybe it doesn't, because they open the door or they look through the window like, who are you? And I let them know who I am. And the reality is that when I tell them who I am, I tell them, look, I don't have any credentials. I don't have any, certification behind me. My sincerity is my credentials. And a lot of them know me because, I have my own story of recovery. Today I'm celebrating 9,950 days, right? One at a time. So, yeah, so we knock on the door, and what we try to do is we try to ask them some questions. Why am I here? Well, the reality is that you don't show up on an overdose report, or you don't show up in the back of a police car without something being wrong. How can we help you? How can I help you? And I don't try to push treatment, right? I don't try to push recovery. What I try to push is probably the most important thing that anybody can need. And it's connection. Just trying to open up a line of support. If you guys don't know, this is an animated close-up of Michelangelo's painting. Courtney, you know what I'm talking about, the hand of God, right? All right. Michelangelo, the same guy who used marble, just like the shit behind me, all right? And he carved from one piece, not like 5 pieces, but from one piece, a huge, huge statue of this man they call David, right? It's like the most, impressive carving. And they asked him, they said, man, how did you do that? And he said, I did nothing. All I did was I just removed everything that wasn't David, and there he was. And that's what we do. We take away the drugs and the alcohol and the using, and what are we left with? We're left with the real person that's left in there. That's what we try to do, right? Unfortunately, we don't remove it. We just, we're just there on support until they can figure it out. So that's what I do every single day. And that can consist of, yes, if they want treatment, okay, well, listen, I know how to push that. If they want MATs, I know how to do that. They need Narcan, we can do that. You need clothes? Hey, I know a guy. You need food? I know somebody too. How can we help you? What do we got to do to keep you on this side of the ground? That's the name of the game. All right? And some people, they're not ready. It's still important to offer a supportive hand. Why? Because, as Miss Charlotte said earlier, a riptide can take you up out of here. And I always look at addiction as like the sea of addiction, right? Look, today, I spent early today on a boat in Lake Erie, right? We're doing like team building stuff, right? That's why I look like I'm a sailor, like I sail, right? But really, I mean, I spent a lot of time on the seas, not just Lake Erie. I actually sailed over the Mariana Trench 5 miles deep, all right? I know what it's like to be looking down at something way bigger than you. And, you know, you might think it's just a little bit of water, it's just a little bit of addiction, but the sea of addiction is vast and it is big. And there is a tide and it will pull you out. And we got to pay attention to that kind of stuff. That's why we need help. You know, the sea of addiction, it takes the ability of people to speak nicely and they start turning into sailors. You know what sailors are, right? Sailors are people that all they do is they speak those nasty 4-letter words, right? Can you think of any nasty 4-letter words, anybody? Yeah. I got a list of them right here, all right? I'm going to turn them over. Here's a whole list of nasty 4-letter words that individuals that struggle with addiction say all the time. Nope. Ain't doing it. I can't. Can't do it. I won't do it. Nada. Nope. And hard. Wait a minute. Hard is not. Wait a minute. Hold on. There we go. Too hard. You like that? You all right? You see what I was doing there? All right. Too hard. And they forget that there's only one 4-letter word that is necessary, and they lose the ability to say it. Individuals that we're here to honor today sometimes lose the ability to say help. It takes a lot of courage to say help. I think everyone that is over here under those tables that might have a recovery date themselves, they had to learn the hard way that the only way that we can get better is to accept the help that is offered to us. So what is the solution? Well, myself and my colleague, Deanna, who's sitting right there, and we ride every single day. Deanna, please raise your hand. There we go. Give it up for Deanna. Listen, she's real humble, but listen, she knows a lot about a lot, okay? Don't let her fool you, all right? We go out every single day, try to change the world, one starfish at a time. It's a little at a time. What can we do to help somebody? And it's real. So I left that page blank on purpose because the key is to stay teachable for us in the fields, right? The key is for us not to paint individuals with a real broad paintbrush, right? It seems like everybody wants to like fix this problem with a broad paintbrush. You hear it all the time. You hear people say, oh, well, you know, just let them go to those 12-step groups, or just let them like get on some, you know, medical assisted treatment, or just let them go to jail, or just let them get their own experience. You know, everyone's trying to fix somebody with a wide paintbrush, but the reality is when we're intimate with individuals, right? When we pay a close attention to the fine detail of what someone is going through, and we try to not just meet them where they're at, but when we try to meet them where they need us to be, that's when we become valuable and helpful. And this is my last prop right here. That's my you know, helping people out. Listen, helping people out of a bad spot, man. Right? So that's what we do every single day. Look, if anyone has an issue in Niagara County, it doesn't make a difference if it's Niagara Falls, on 19th Street, which is where I live. I live right there in the hood. I live right in the muck of the mire. Whether it's Middleport, Gasport, Lockport, Tonawanda, Ransomville, Lewiston, anywhere. If there's going to be someone that has an overdose and the paramedics and the law enforcement send us an email, I'm going. And we ain't afraid to walk up in crack houses, and we ain't afraid to ask someone the hard questions. And the reality is that all we're trying to do, and look, God's blessed me with a certain physical stature. All right, I'm 6'6", 265. No one is intimidated when I walk up in the room because I'm leading with love. Right? That's the key, is we lead with love. I'm so grateful to be a part of, and Dougie. Listen, Doug got me the job where I'm at right now. He thought enough of me to say, I think this might be right for you. I don't know. I think I'm right where I'm supposed to be. But you know what? I'm not the only one. If you're sitting right here and you're honoring your family and you're supporting someone, you're right where you're supposed to be too. I'm a big believer in that. And I'm no expert on nothing. I'm getting up on age. You know what I mean? I'm drawing upon the experience and the wisdom that was planted in me a long time ago. Some people planted information in me a long time ago, and then they walked away. It did not need their permission to grow. You keep doing the same thing. Plant hope into the individuals, and you do your job and let God do his job. You know what I mean? That's really all I got. Thanks for letting me share. Let's go, Buffalo.
Give it up for Josh again, guys. And his presentation. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Deanna, as well. He's not lying. You guys are doing a great job in the community. And he is the perfect man for the job. Very humble man. I just want to give a shout out. We got the Mobile Safety Net Team, the Rural Niagara Coalition. If you guys would do a short survey, 4 questions, in and out, right by this first tent. Wave your hand, Ellison, over there. If you guys would like to do a survey for us, please help us gather information so we can best serve our communities. That would be wonderful tonight. And I want to introduce one of my co-workers to introduce our next speaker. Here's Naomi. Give her a round of applause.
Thanks, Dougie. Thanks, everybody, for coming out. This is pretty amazing. Before I got to this position, I worked in the family-to-family recovery, and I did a lot of support groups and helping families find places to link their loved ones with treatment. And I happened to come across our next speaker, who her story is completely amazing when she speaks about her son, Colton. And the work that she's done with Colton's journey has just really lit a fire within me to really help family members know that there is something that they can do. We can support. We can help our loved ones find treatment. We can learn how to help without hindering. We can work together as a community instead of being these separate lighthouses where nobody talks about the secrets. And Becky talks to me about the secrets and how we need to break them down in order for our kids and our loved ones and our family members to be able to recover from this horrible disease. So I'd like to invite Becky up. Give her a big round of applause.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rebecca Barnell, better known as Becky. Colton's Journey to Liberation is the organization I started when my son, on or around the first year anniversary of my son's death. He died on his 23rd birthday in 2016, June 23rd. We spent 10 years trying to figure out how to help him live. He spent most of those years in and out of rehab, started when he was 16 in rehab. Took us from the time he was 13 until he was 16 to figure out that it was addiction. Because when you go to the doctor, they're very quick to tell you got bipolar disorder, or you're depressed, or you have many, many other things. They might be right. When you break your leg, they do an x-ray and they look at your leg. They tell you where it's broken. When your brain is broken, they don't look at your brain, they just guess. There are some doctors out there doing some amazing stuff with SPECT scans to look at people's brains and see what's actually going on. And I don't ever hear people talk about it, but it's real and it's happening. And there's thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of SPECT scans that have been done. They can see it when it happens. They can see what's going on. They can see your blood flow. They can see your oxygen. They can see your neurotransmitters firing. They know what's going on. They can actually diagnose the problem for what it actually is. But we don't use it. We don't even talk about it. And I'm introducing that here because I think people need to start asking about it. Start requesting it. Start knowing about it. If we could have looked at my son's brain, we might not have gone through so many doctors, and we might not have been at the school trying to figure out how come he couldn't stay, how come he had to leave, why he had to use all the time, why I never knew if my keys were where I left them, why I never knew if the money that was in my purse or was missing from my purse was where it was supposed to be, if my car had been moved in the middle of the night. And then he goes to rehab. He went to Kids Escaping Drugs, an amazing, amazing organization, Renaissance House. Saved all of our lives for a long time, but it helped us learn so much about how to work with this disease. And prior to that, I would ask the police, I would ask the school, I would ask the counselors. I asked anybody who would let me ask them how I could help them. It was actually the man who did the sermon tonight was Colton's counselor at Renaissance House. Amazing man. Changed my family's life. Colton went on to go to many more rehabs and jail. He didn't spend a long time in jail. I had to send him to Florida, 2015. I left work. The other side of this that everybody always forgets is what's happening to the family members. I'm a single mom. I have a middle-class job. I go to work every day. I work 12-hour days, 7 days a week a lot of the time. I did what I had to do to take care of my family, but I was always present. I might be at work at 2 in the morning. I might be at work at 7 in the morning. I might be at work at 7 o'clock at night. My shift changed at the will of the company that I work for. I always found somebody there. Somebody would have to come and stay at the house. I'd have to get a babysitter at 2 in the morning to show up at my house so they could watch my kids so I could go to work, so that I could get a phone call the next morning around 9 o'clock a.m. Your son left school again. Or the cops would be at my door. Or the neighbors down the street would be talking, because after all, she's got an addict in the house. There must be something wrong with her. I've never been ashamed of Colton's addiction, ever. I will say that I had the good fortune of growing up in a very dysfunctional life, home, and family. And I say that's good fortune because it taught me a lot. And it taught me how to not, but to help him try and find paths to recovery, which nobody would help us with. You go to the doctors, they don't tell you where to go. You go to the emergency room, you're in full-fledged detox, they don't tell you where to go, but they'll let you sit there for 10 or 12 hours while you're waiting. They'll let your kid go home and tell him they don't have a bed for him, knowing that he could die on the street that night, and they're basically just letting you know that, oh, by the way, you're worthless. That may not be the message they're trying to send, but it's the message that the person they're sending away gets. The message that I kept getting was that there was nothing out there. There was nobody to help us. The emergency room wouldn't keep him. We'd go to ECMC at the time. Now they have something different. At the time, ECMC, he'd sit 10 or 12 hours deeply into detox. And at the end of the day, they'd say, sorry, we don't have a bed for you. Not only that, you'd call the other places to get a bed and nobody had one. But come stand in line the next day, I was told. Meanwhile, you have this big of a window when someone's willing to get recovery. You're lucky if it's 4 or 5, or I would say lucky for 12 hours. Most of the time, not that long. My son was desperate to get sober and could not stay sober. For whatever reason, his relapses were always imminent. He went to Florida because I couldn't get him help here. So for a year, he spent away from me, part of it in Florida, part of it in North Carolina, but I had to fly him down there to a place that I didn't know. I did the research. They were 10 years old. They seemed reputable. He went in, he detoxed. He went to their 28-day rehab, and then he went into a halfway house that I had to pay for. And then he relapsed. Big surprise. But he told on himself right away. He told them that he relapsed. Within a day, he told them. And they said, sorry, you can't stay here anymore. You got to go to the next one down the chain. So he did. He went back to detox. He went back to a different halfway house, relapsed again. It was a one-day deal. Again, sorry, you can't stay here. You relapsed. That means you suck. Now you need to go somewhere else. When our people are trying to recover, relapse is just the deal. It doesn't have to happen to everybody, but I really don't know anyone it hasn't happened to. And I don't know very many people that have lived through their addiction. I don't like living without my son. I love that his life is helping other people. We had a chicken barbecue in April of 2016 before the first, or 2017 before the first benefit we did. As I was doing the benefit is when I decided we were starting the company. And we are a nonprofit 501c3 company. When we had the chicken barbecue, in it we put flyers. This takes a village to help. And in all of the villages, there is not really that much help or no help. And if there is, nobody knows about it. 6 months after Colton died, I found out that Addict to Addict was a thing. I found out that Evergreen was a thing. They both, as soon as I started having meetings for the community, showed up to help us with our meetings. Addict to Addict helped me get Colton's journey off the ground, and Evergreen helped me get Colton's journey off the ground. And they did that by showing up and helping with the peer support that was needed. I was there for the parents. They were there for everybody else. I was there for the family members and the parents. They were there for the people who were in recovery or needed to be. I was so friggin' mad that I found out these places existed after my son died. It was unconscionable to me. I have been everywhere asking questions, online, looking. Nothing came up. I didn't even know Evergreen was harm reduction. I just knew it was about AIDS. And you know what? Thank God they exist, because you know how many people they help every single day? They show up every time I refer someone to them. That person is somewhere within 24 hours, every single time. Liz Miller is a gift from God. Every time Addict to Addict has been with anything we do, or anytime I call them, they show up just like that. The person is helped immediately. If they can't get them in, they help them find another way. If I would have had that for my son, we might have had a chance. There's no way to know that, except for I'm glad that I can tell other people so they don't have to live the way that we lived. I used to tell my son all the time, I will help you live, but I will not help you die. Every decision I made was wrenching, heart-wrenching. Every time I made a decision with him and what he was doing, telling him he couldn't stay in my home, telling him I couldn't jeopardize his sister's lives, I wasn't telling him there was something wrong with them, because right on the heels of that, I would tell him, I love you and I am here for you when you're ready to do this a different way. And in the meantime, I will help you live. I won't help you die. I cannot help you right now. Those are the hardest things a parent ever has to say to their children. I have two amazing daughters, and I think that people miss very much the connection between siblings, because the effect that there is on a parent is immense. It is equal to the children that lose their brothers or sisters. Both of my daughters, who are now college age, are everything they do is a direct reflection of his life and his death. And I mean that because of the way that they are, what they do in their lives, the career paths they've chosen, and the way that they've chosen to take self-awareness and self-responsibility on the road with their lives, in their relationships, in their family relationships, in their personal and professional lives. We have been fortunate that since that first barbecue that we had, the flyer that was in there said it takes a village and we need places in all of our towns for people to have peer-to-peer group support meetings. Whether it's the family members that are suffering from having someone with addiction or the addiction itself and the people suffering from it. At that barbecue, someone got a flyer in their chicken that day. They called me within a month later and said they wanted to start a support group. Through their church, there was an extended building they could use. They said because of that chicken barbecue and because of the message that we were sharing, that they felt obligated to start one of those. They had a place to do it, the means to do it, and the people to volunteer. They now offer at least 7 to 10 meetings a week, NA, AA, family support, spiritual. One of the women there named her newest child after my son because of the story that changed her life, helped change her life. Our children that we have lost and our family members that are struggling with this don't deserve what they have. And there are ways to find hope. Hope is right around the corner all the time, but not when you don't know about it. If you can't find it, you just suffer. And if you can't find it, it's like this big, I'm trying not to swear, I'm sorry. There's a big secret. And I'll go back to when I say dysfunctional life, sexual molestation, addiction in the family, multiple divorces, moving every 3 or 4 months, and it goes on and on, physical abuse, all of it. The secrets that we keep are killing us and they're killing the people we love. Our secrets. I don't care if it's the chocolate cake that you ate and you're a diabetic and you're not telling your family that you did it. You're risking your life, but it's your business. You're the only one that can help yourself. Nobody can help you with that piece of cake. I have realized that I have to recover from the life that I had with my son. My own recovery, I don't have any addictions, thank God. My children definitely a happy addiction. My 3 children, and I talk about Colton like he's still alive because for me, he will always be alive. I am not afraid to talk about him. I am not worried about what people think. I don't care what people think. It's irrelevant to me. I love my kids. I love our life. I love everything about all of it, even the worst of it. Colton taught me so much. He teaches people every day that we share information. He's teaching someone else through us. And we have to live without him. But you know what? He had a full life in his 23 years. That kid didn't stop. God took him out fair and square. My son came to me. He happened to work where I work at the end of his life. He had relapsed again after coming back from Florida. He couldn't take it. Colton couldn't stand the relapses. It was just killing him. He came to work. And, as parents, you'll understand this. When they start telling you shocking things, how you have to act like you're not shocked. You go, oh, okay then. What are we going to do next? He came to work that day to tell me he planned his suicide. And he was going to do it that day. And he was going to do it with the drugs because he didn't want to get a gun and do it that way. He didn't want to hang himself. Imagine my face when he said that. I didn't make a face. It was stone cold. I had to turn away so he couldn't see the face that I was about to make. And then I took a second and collected my face and turned back around and said, okay, then what do you want to do right now? What are we going to do? And we left for ECMC. He ended up knowing exactly what to have in his system, so they could not turn him away this time. That was magic, because I got to at least know he was going to get help again for at least a little while. They didn't have a bed for him, so they had to put him on the 7th floor because they couldn't let him go. Win for us. He was there for 7 days. He got out just before his 23rd birthday. We had already decided I would be taking him back to North Carolina to stay with his grandparents, where he stood a fighting chance with his grandfather and his grandmother, working with his granddad to at least try again. But again, I was going to have to lose my son because he was going to have to leave. You take your addiction with you, so that's not anything new. I was on the phone with him the night that he got out, the 22nd. He was at his dad's house. I was going to see him the next day, so I wasn't worried about it. He was so happy on the phone. He was so happy. He was like, and it scared me because every time he was like that, it was like because of the euphoria of whatever he was about to do or just did. I was scared to death at that very moment. I thought, my God, I'm going to lose him. I'm definitely going to lose him. He was talking about God, and he was talking about what he was going to do, and that this was his fresh start. And I'm like, God, what is happening? This is awesome and horrible all at the same time. It was awful. I should have been able to rejoice. I should have been able to be so happy. And I was scared to death. I called his dad the very next minute. I said, is Colton okay? He's like, yeah, he's fine. He's right here. I said, did he use? Is there something? I said, he's so happy right now. He goes, no, he's good. I've been with him all day. Colton got mad that I called his dad and asked. That I didn't ever talk to Colton again. I got a phone call 2.5 hours later that he was being rushed to the emergency room. They had resuscitated him. But his brain never woke up again. And Colton didn't die from an overdose. He died from an arrhythmia. So the myth is that it's really not just about overdoses. It's about the whole thing. It's about the reaction our bodies have to using and relapsing. It's about the use of all the time. It's about the suicide. It's about the overdose. And it's about sharing this information so everybody doesn't have to go through this. My son was a light in life. His ability to turn poetry into something amazing, the way he loved literature, he was a soft and gracious soul. He wasn't not a man's man. He was a man with a deep voice. He was only about 5'9". It would throw people off when he would talk because his voice was so deep. He was kind and loving and tender, and his heart could be hurt easily. And he was mine. And when he was born, I thought, oh my God. I didn't even want kids though. I was married for 4 years before I had my son. I had married my husband in the Air Force. We were both in the service in Japan. We came back to New York because this is where my husband was from. When I found out I was pregnant with Colton, I cried my eyes out. I'm like, what am I going to do? I don't know how to be a mother. I was 24 years old when I had him. It scared me to death. But the minute he showed up, changed everything. And then I couldn't imagine having any more children because after all, I could never love anybody that much ever again, not ever. There's no way that you could do that more than once. How could you love anything that much? And I did. I had 2 more children with my second husband, and I love them the same as I love him, and I call them my 3 hearts because they are the beating of everything that I have and everything I do. Colton's Journey is here to share all of these places. We are a hub of information. If you don't know about us, you need to call us. If you know about a place that helps people, it goes on my website, Colton's Journey to Liberation, shining the light on the path traveled by one that affects many. Everybody has that. All of us shine a light somewhere. Where our light shines is different. Colton's life has changed many, many, many lives. I'm so grateful. What we set out to do, we can see that we're doing. But we need to do it more, as much as we can, with every opportunity that's out there, whether it's a community that gets together and has meetings. Best Self, I didn't even know about till after Colton died. Addict to Addict, I didn't know about. Evergreen, I didn't know about. All of them. Save the Michaels. I bet we always have success when we send people there. All of them. Thank God these places are here, and I'm so grateful that we get to share it. If you get a chance, go to coltonsjourney.com or cjtol.com. It's just the acronym for it. Look up our resources. Share that with other people if they need it. Probably all of you are in there. I don't know about you because you didn't say where you work. So I want to know. But anybody who's here, if you've got a card that you can give me, I want it on my website. I need to know what you guys are doing in Niagara County, Erie County. The fitness over in the Rochester area, absolutely want to share that stuff. Those things are things that breed with each other and they spread like wildfire. If we share it and we're not afraid, don't be afraid ever of this. There's something there for us. And as a community, we can change the world. Our problem is that a lot of people still, even though I know a lot of people are getting better, there's still a lot of people that just don't believe in what we're doing. But they don't have to right now because they will. All we got to do is keep doing it. We just got to keep showing up. We just got to keep telling the truth. We have to keep encouraging everybody else. Don't keep those secrets. I don't care which ones they are. They're hurting you, they're hurting your family, and they will kill somebody. We can make great things happen together. And every person I would say this room, but every person sitting here makes a difference. Every time you say something, it changes somebody else's life. I really appreciate the opportunity to come up here. Thank you so much.
She gets me every time. Let's have another hand for Becky.
Big round of applause for Naomi as well. All right, guys, we come to the bullpen. We're calling the relief pitcher in here, one of my best friends, our closer tonight. But don't go anywhere, because after this, we're going to have our closing prayer, our flameless candlelight vigil, which we have the candles up here on the memorial table, and the bell ringing ceremony that we do for all the lost fatalities in the past year in Niagara and Orleans County. And this gentleman who's about to speak now, one of my best friends, one of my go-tos. I can always call on him. I can always call on him in time of need when I need to talk. He's instilled in me since I got into recovery how to be a good father, a good friend, a good husband, and a stand-up guy. I give you guys Craig Udell.
Sorry. Good evening. My name is Craig. I'm a recovering addict. Could I have everyone from every booth and everything, come closer here? Get out of your booths. Come forward. Get everyone close. This is how we're going to overcome addiction, by bringing people together. If we separate the community and we separate things, we don't know where to find our help. So let's make ourselves come closer. That way we get familiar with the faces and we can see each other. So at the beginning, to start this off, Doug was giving you guys some statistics of the overdoses that happened in Niagara County, Orleans County, and local areas. I want to bring up some statistics that were worldwide, and I want to give you an idea of what it looks like, the pandemic of addiction. So in 2018, there was 67,000 overdoses worldwide in 2018. In 2019, we saw that increase by 5,000, and there was 73,000 overdose worldwide. To put that in perspective, the Vietnam War, there was 56,309 casualties in the Vietnam War. So in 2019, there was more overdoses than deaths in the Vietnam War. In 2020, there was 93,000 overdoses. To put that into perspective, World War II had 297 deaths per day. World War I had 200 deaths per day. In 2020, we witnessed 244 deaths per day due to overdoses. These are some pretty staggering statistics that should be eye-opening to everybody in the community. There's no cookie-cutter process to recovery. My background is much like most addicts. I mean, if you watch television, you'll see that everyone has this underlying circumstance as to why they used. I used because I thought that it looked fun. I thought that it was the cool thing to do. The music that's played on the radio made using look cool. The friends that I hung out with made it look cool. Everything was all fun and games in the beginning until it became a habit and until it became my only way to survive. I went through a very normal childhood. I had grown up close by in Newfane, New York. We had apple orchards out there. We played hide and seek. We pretended that we were gangsters, but the truth is we only had to dodge apples out there. So sadly, I made a lot of bad choices and a lot of wrong turns. And at a particular time, I was facing 16 years in prison. Okay, I'm one of the addicts that needed special encouragement from the courts. Like I said, there's no cookie cutter process to recovery. Some people need special encouragement from the courts. Some people, go to rehab by choice. Some people get forced into it by loved ones. Some people go through 12-step programs. Some people go to church. Whatever the reasoning or the idea behind it, the goal is that we get clean and stay clean. So I'm thinking about the people that I've lost since I've gotten clean. I got clean January 8th, 2012. So I'm just over 9.5 years clean. And in the very first year of my recovery, I actually lost 8 friends of mine to an overdose in the very first year of recovery. I remember the following year, I had another 10 funerals to go to, and it kept going and going and going. And I think that all too often, the stigma that comes behind addiction makes all addicts scared to come out and ask for help. I remember the disease of addiction telling me that nobody wanted to help me. I remember the disease of addiction telling me that my family didn't love me. I remember the disease of addiction forcing me to isolate and stay away from everyone, including my friends that used. It puts you into a corner that's so black that you think that there's no hope. There was a household because bills no longer became important to me. Hygiene and the things that normal people do were no longer prevalent in my life. The things that we find so simple as normal people in society, like getting a job and going to work, was no longer something of simplicity to me. And I had several flop houses because bills were never a priority, but people would allow me to stay at their house because I had drugs. And there was a particular house that I stayed at, and I was thinking about it earlier. And there was 4 guys that stayed in this house with me, and none of them are here today. When I got clean, the questions started to go through my head as to why was I able to make it and they were not. And them questions will never be answered to me. I do know that along this path, I had some really, really good friends who got confused about what addiction was. A lot of us want to confuse addiction with a particular substance and believe that if we put one particular substance down that we can use another. And I had a friend of mine who believed that his problem was opiates, that his problem was fentanyl. And we get this idea that there's one particular substance that as long as we avoid that substance, that we'll be okay. Right? And I remember him talking about when he got out of rehab that he was going to go to a Bills game and it was going to be okay to just have a couple of drinks because his problem was fentanyl. The problem with that is, as an addict, we fall into this obsession and compulsive behavior. One is too many and 1,000 is never enough. He got together with a bunch of his friends that didn't understand the disease of addiction. They started having some drinks. And we all have had them friends where we say, I can drink you under the table. And this particular gentleman had a bunch of drinks with his friends. They were playing quarters and he drank himself into an alcohol-induced coma. He did not have the tolerance build up for the alcohol, although he thought that he did because he assumed that his only problem was alcohol. Sadly, they had to take him off of a ventilator because that was the only thing that was sustaining him through this alcohol-induced coma. During the process of recovery, I was given one piece of advice that will always stick with me. I was told that if I was going to get into the process of recovery, the first thing I needed to do was go out and buy a suit. Now, in early recovery, I didn't have the money to afford a suit, so I actually stole my dad's suit. I still have it in my closet. I think the pants are in my son's drawer now. But they told me that I needed a suit, and the reason that I would need a suit is because that if I stayed in the process of recovery, I was going to meet a lot of people. I was going to branch out, and I was going to have a wide connection of people. And during this travel, this road to recovery, people were going to pass away. And I was going to need a suit to wear to the funerals of those who had passed away. The other reason that I needed a suit was in case I decided to jump off the road to recovery and decided to use one more time, that they would have something nice to bury me in. That stuck with me. That was something that seemed so profound that it actually motivated me to want to stick to this path of recovery. Us addicts are not bad people. We just get caught up in circumstances that we believe that there's no way out of. If we can come together as a community and show hope to addicts and allow them to know that there's help out there. The fact that so many people showed up today is a great sign that the stigma is being broken. Because what I expected to see was more addicts that were seeking recovery than actually the people that are here. So I'm glad to see so many people that, have been maybe had their lives affected by addiction as opposed to being in the process of recovery. I know one of the most exciting things about tonight for me was walking up here in front of Judge Watson and Sheriff Falchetti and not having them put me in cuffs. Many people might not understand that, but you may not have come up the same way that I did. Judge Watson, in 2012, I was in front of him and he granted me no bail. He told me that he wasn't going to allow me out of the courtroom because he believed that I was just going to be a repeat offender. I had an attorney who also told me that he didn't believe in me. I asked for any way that I could get out of the way of going to jail. And back in that time, they had the diversion program. My attorney said that that wouldn't be in my best interest because he didn't believe in me. I'm talking about an addict that's at his bitter ends, facing multiple years in prison for drug-related crimes, and having the judge not believe in you, your own attorney not believe in you, having yourself not believe in you. But there was one group of people that believed in me. And there was a slogan that said that if I just have one person who believes in me and wants to help me in my recovery, that just for today I would have nothing to fear. And they motivated me to go onto this path of recovery. And what I can tell you today is that with over 9.5 years clean, I have some wonderful things that have happened in my life. And I just want to share with you that if you have someone in your family that may be affected by addiction, that if you have a friend who may be affected by addiction, if you yourself are struggling with addiction, that there is a way out. I want to take a brief moment right here, right now, of silence. And I want us to take a deep thought process right now of anyone that you may have lost to the disease of addiction. If you yourself are struggling with the disease of addiction, I want you to think about a friend or a family member or anyone that you know that's struggling with addiction. And I want to take this moment of silence and I want you to pray for them. Because the only reason that we're able to stand up here today, or me, myself, am able to stay up here today, was because of the power of prayer. Okay? There's a biblical verse, and the good thing that I like about standing up here today is that I can talk about my belief and stand on my belief. I'm not in a place where I have to deny the faith that I have. But there is a biblical verse in Ephesians 2:8-9 that states that, give me one moment. So Ephesians 2:8-9 says, "For it is by grace that you have been saved through faith. It is not from ourselves. It is a gift from God, not that no man can boast." So it is by grace that I am up here and able to sing, to carry a message of hope to others. What is grace in definition? It's an undeserved favor, something that I was never deserving of. I didn't deserve to have my life spared to the disease of addiction. I was facing 16 years in prison. I probably should have been locked away. I remembered the police reports being shared through the Buffalo News app, my picture being shared on Facebook, and people saying that I deserved to rot in jail, to lock me up and throw away the key. I remember them things being said about me. But here I am today with my father out in the audience. I have my 3 children out in the audience. I have my wife out in the audience who actually works at a prison system. So I went from reporting to the prison system in cuffs to actually having the ability to marry within the prison system. So I just want to take this moment of silence, like I said, and I want you to just think about somebody in your life that's affected by addiction right now, and use this moment for prayer. Can we have that moment now? I hope that you found it in your heart to pray for somebody. I hope that you understand the power of prayer and what it can do to pull people out from the disease of addiction. I want to thank all of the people that showed up over here with their booths. I want to thank Doug for giving me an opportunity to come out here and speak to everybody. This is a different type of a platform to speak in. So I'm honored that you had given me that opportunity. I hope that you all reach out to those that you prayed for and let them know that you were thinking of them. Too often we want to criticize and put them down when we don't even understand what they're going through. I remember a particular time that somebody was using, and even me, having been through that scenario, didn't have quite the empathetic attitude that I should have. It's all too often that we forget where we came from, and we need to start showing more support and more love to those who mess up, and make sure that no matter what, that they have somewhere to go, someone to turn to. Because all too often, even though there's a saying that says 1 is too many and 1,000 is never enough, it's all too often that 1 is too many, and that was enough. So, real quick, I'm just going to share a scenario that happened with me, and I'm going to close with this. Today, I was on my way home from work, and there was a little old lady in the store who kept on staring at me. And she made me feel kind of uncomfortable. She continued to look, and she was turning down the aisles, and she followed me all around Walmart. Eventually, she came up to me and she said, "Timothy." And I said, "No, ma'am, you've got the wrong guy. My name is Craig." She said, "I'm sorry, sir, but you look just like my son, Timothy." And the irony of the scenario is that today is overdose awareness. And this lady had advised me that she had lost her son to an overdose. And she said that she never was given the opportunity to say goodbye to him, and asked if she could give me a hug. So, being empathetic as I was, I offered this lady a hug. And in the midst of the hug, she reached behind me and took my wallet out of my pocket and started running. Now, I never realized how out of shape I was until I started to chase this lady through Walmart. She got all the way out to the parking lot and into her car when I got a hold of her leg and started pulling it, like I'm pulling all of yours. My name is Craig. I hope you all have a blessed night.
Another round of applause for my buddy Craig. You never gets old, Craig. Never gets old. All right. Once again, that's it for our speakers. We got one more person coming up here that's gonna say a couple things and then pray us out before we do our flameless candlelight vigil. The candles are up here on this front table, on the memorial table. But before I introduce our last person who's gonna come up here, I want to thank all of you guys for coming out and making this event what it is every year. Please give yourselves another round of applause, please. Thank you so much. On behalf of those who aren't here with us, I want to thank Sheriff Filicetti, Judge Watson, Juliet Alexander, Lisa Nichols, Lisa Lamprecht, Liza from Evergreen, Joshua Anderson, Becky Barnell, and Craig Udell. And I want to bring up the gentleman who had the privilege of marrying me and my wife, Pastor Steve O'Mara. Give him a round of applause.
So I don't know how I follow that up. Craig, you should be a pastor. Just, you said in conclusion like 4 times. He's ready. I have been a pastor here in Lockport for 5 years. Prior to that, we worked with another church. And we had a meeting. And in that meeting, we were talking about how NA had gone downstairs and was playing with the toys. And they broke the drum set. And they were responsible for all of our woes. And they give us a bad name. And I said, isn't that a good thing? Isn't that, like, I want that reputation? Isn't that the reputation Jesus had? That's what I want. And I was very sharply rebuked for it. But I got to know those people. And I realized that there weren't enough people in their lives telling them that they loved them. Standing shoulder to shoulder with them, supporting them. Right now, I'm not paying anybody's bills. But if you're here today and you are in recovery, I am proud of you. And so we started our church on that premise, that we want to support addiction, recovery, and support. I want the opportunity to give you a hug and tell you that I love you and I'm proud of you and that I support you in your recovery. And if you are here and you are in active addiction, I want you to know that there's help and that we love you. And that I will walk with you regardless of what it makes me look like, because I don't care. And I don't think that there's a person here who cares what it makes them look like. Whether you've lost a loved one, whether, like my wife, as a child, you had the drug dealer show up to take the family car because your dad sold it. And I don't care where you are. I love you and I want to support you. And I think that's the message of the gospel. And so that's why we started our church. That's why we're doing what we're doing. And I think that's why most of you are doing what you are doing, is because you want to see lives changed, lives transformed, people being boosted up and not put down. And that's what I want. And so as we pray today, I want you to remember those people who are still in active addiction as we pray. I don't know their names. If you do, pray for them by name. We want to see them healed. So, Father God, I thank you for what you've done here in Lockport today and what you're doing for Lockport. Father, I thank you that when I was a kid, Lockport was the place to go to get drugs. And I thank you that today, Lockport is the place to go and get help. I thank you. Father, I would just ask that you would continue to build up this city. Father, that those who are caught in active addiction, those who are struggling with addiction, Father, you would come into their lives. Father, you would send these people out. Father, that we could touch every one of their lives. Father, that we can hold them up. And we can show some semblance of the love that you have for them, that you have for us. I just ask all of this in your holy and precious name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Steve. Thank you very much. At this time, if you could come up here and grab one of those flameless candles, so we can do our flameless candlelight vigil and have our bell ringing ceremony. And I want to thank everyone that came out and helped us celebrate the lives of the ones that we've lost. Thank you once again. Give yourselves one more round of applause, please. And thank you to Karen. anyone else need a flameless candle, please come up front at this time, as we will be doing our bell ringing ceremony. T-minus 30 seconds. And you guys can feel free to take pictures in front of this banner after if you'd like to as well, for yourselves. We will be ringing the bell 68 times for those that we have lost in the last year. One is too many. My buddy all the way from Michigan. Let's give him a round of applause. He came out from Michigan for this. My man, cool. There's an iPad set up and people are watching all over the country. Thank you, bro. All right, we're going to start the bell ringing ceremony. Go ahead. Thank you all for coming out. And if you guys need any resources, please feel free to hit these tables before you do leave. Don't resources. Thank you, guys.
Just barely.